And there's always like fundamental principles and laws that will help you become a better man. And it really, masculinity has nothing to do with like having a posse of women around you, right? Or just like being ignorant all the time and just spending money on nothing. Like that's not what masculinity is.
Which is unfortunate because a lot of specifically teens and people in their mid-20s, I notice it primarily, they think that's what it is.
Yeah.
They think it's just get as much women as possible, buy, flashy things to make you look cool. On this episode of the Captain's Lifestyle Podcast, I'm joined by Mason Kuhr and my balls.
Let's go.
And it's perfect because today we're going to be getting toxic.
That's right.
Not inserting toxins into our body, but asserting our toxic dominance.
100%.
Right?
Masculinity.
Yeah, damn right. And before that, we're gonna take a shot of some rocket fuel.
Let's do it.
Ready to go?
Yeah.
So before we had a shot of your new Awakened, which absolutely does the trick.
You feeling it a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you'll go first. There we go.
Let's go. Keep toning me up. Some good stuff.
About to be buzzing.
Oh yeah.
All right.
I've been here for 15 minutes and the amount of things I've taken is absurd.
It's like, here.
Yeah.
Try this.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the fun stuff.
What you put into your body today is the foundation for who you become tomorrow. That's why I fuel with Ketone IQ from HVMN. They're redefining the limits of human performance, metabolism, and longevity. I use Ketone IQ before every podcast to keep my mind sharp and clear. Head over to hvmn.com and use code CaptainMorgan_20 to get yours today. Back to the show.
All right. Yeah. Shout out to HVMN and Ketone IQ. Use code CaptainMorgan_20 to try the rocket fuel for yourself, for your brain, body. We took it this morning when we were doing some MMA. That was great.
It was fun, wasn't it?
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. How'd you feel afterwards?
Wrecked.
Yeah.
That was a good workout. I took a 20-minute nap before this and I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And
you kick like a tank, dude.
The kicks are the one thing that I've practiced, specifically with my left foot.
Yeah.
I feel confident with the kicks. The punches are new for me, way new. But that was good. I always say it would be unreasonable for me to be good at something that I just started learning, right? So I go into it with that mindset because before I started doing all this personal development, I would have like been way more critical on myself. Like I should be good at this naturally, right? But that's absolutely not the case. So I'm no longer asking the universe to be unreasonable for me to allow me to be good at something that I've never really practiced before. So that was a great lesson with Josh. He taught technique, he taught movement, which was great. It's what I need, and I'm excited to go back again.
Yeah, we're gonna hit it again.
Do a little more.
Sure.
Do a little more hitting.
You at least know how to learn, though. That's what's important,
Yes.
right? And that's the most important thing.
Yes, I have learned to go into it with a beginner's mind and go into it with curiosity. One of the things I noticed from the Marine Corps is a lot of the guys who, when learning shooting, if they practiced as a civilian, like before going in, if they hunted or went to the shooting range or whatever, they went into it knowing or thinking that they knew already how to shoot. And so when the instructors were teaching, they were going into it with this mindset, oh, I already know what I'm doing. And most of the time they would score lower than the people who have never shot before because they were just absorbing everything.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's all ego. That's what we talked about the last podcast, I think. So,
yeah. Ego, going into it with the beginner's mind. This book, The Way of the Superior Man. I saw you recently put out an email with this, and you put some stories on your Instagram the other day about toxic masculinity. So that's where we're going to start today.
Yeah.
And this book, The Way of the Superior Man by David Dita, is essentially the guidebook for men in masculinity. This is required reading. Would you agree?
Dude, I've probably read it 50 times at this point. And so, yeah, I mean, there's so many different takes on like what men should be and what masculinity is and like what the definition of that is. But it really comes down to like you create it, right? And so this helps you step into that awareness and the perspective of the creator and really just coming from a place of conscious living so that you can do that. And there's always like fundamental principles and laws that will help you become a better man. And it really, masculinity has nothing to do with like having a posse of women around you, right? Or just like being ignorant all the time and just spending money on nothing. Like that's not what masculinity is.
Which is unfortunate because a lot of specifically teens and people in their mid-20s, I notice it primarily, they think that's what it is.
Yeah.
They think it's just get as much women as possible, buy, flashy things to make you look cool. But really, from my experience, if that's what you're doing, you're covering up some deeper like insecurity, right?
Most men are insecure because they have no purpose, right? And so you're big on the purpose too.
Yes. Let's talk purpose.
Let's do it.
I first started to discover my purpose when I was in Saudi Arabia, when I was working as a CrossFit coach there. And me and the owners were butting heads because one of the first things that I implemented as head coach were I created core values for the gym because I understood the importance of that. They're essentially directions, like we are this type of gym. We do this, this, and this. These are our values. And the owners would go against that. They were more focused on money. And I was like, I'm not about that. Like, I'm not going to sacrifice my own integrity to, follow this. And I read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That was what first got me, or what got me deeper into mission and values. And then I read his follow-up book to that, First Things First, which is all about crafting your mission, vision, values. And then I read The Art of Impossible by Stephen Kotler. And in there, he talked about creating your MTP, massively transformative purpose. And that's where I came to contemplate my purpose, which is now make thriving standard. And that's everything I do is to make thriving standard, right? And that was a whole process. Like, it's not just a quick thing. Like, this is an ongoing process that takes time and contemplation. Like, you really have to be introspective and think about who you are and like, what is my purpose on this earth for? And I feel like a lot of men, they just get caught up in doing what they think they're supposed to do, right? Go to college, get a good job that you don't really like, but it makes good money. I hear that all the time. Like, I ask my friends, why are you doing this? Oh, it's good money. So what? Do you enjoy it?
Right.
Right?
Yeah, a lot of dudes, unfortunate reality is a lot of guys today, especially grew up with fathers who were just following the herd, right? And so a lot of it is just mimicking what they saw in the first 7 years of their life when they're absorbing it, right? And so me, for example, I grew up, my dad was a hell of an entrepreneur, right? And I always saw the independence and the freedom side of things. And that's what you were just talking about, is when you're with all these guys chasing money, you're like, okay, there's no like deeper aspect to it. What's the belief that got you to that point where you were thinking those thoughts? Because for me, when I was watching my dad growing up, even though he was a great entrepreneur, there was always this like underlying energy of not being fulfilled. And so like when I was 8 years old, I thought the exact same thought. I was like, I'm never going to sacrifice myself, even if it's, even if I'm an entrepreneur and I have tons of freedom with money, I will never sacrifice my soul or do something that does not actually energize me or light me up that I care about, because I don't want to go a single day with regret, So like, what for you was that?
Yeah, that's one of the big things that sets us apart, is that we're not going to sacrifice our fulfillment simply for the sake of making more money, right? Like, I get different brands hitting me up for, to promote their product, and they've got like artificial sweeteners in it and stuff like that. And it's like, no, I don't care how much you pay me. I'm not going to promote this. So to answer your question, it was when I was coaching in Saudi Arabia and making a large amount of money for me at the time. I was making about $55,000 a year, which I was happy with. I was like, cool, this is a lot more than making $30,000 a year as a CrossFit coach.
Yeah.
And I realized like, okay, I'm making more money now, but I'm still not fulfilled. So, and I took the job in Saudi Arabia for the primary purpose to make more money and also train. The facility there was incredible.
How'd you end up in Saudi Arabia?
Okay. Okay.
Like, that's the elephant in the room right now.
Okay. All right. So, I was, after the Marine Corps, I was coaching CrossFit in Dana Point, and it wasn't a full-time thing. So I was looking to go somewhere full-time, and I got an email from this apparently new gym that was going to open up in Saudi Arabia. Like, hey, we're looking for a head coach. We found you on Instagram. Would you be interested? And first thought was like, oh, this is a scam. Like, there's no way that this is real. Mm-hmm. It's like when the Nigerian princess fucking asks you to send her money or something.
Right.
But I got on a call with him and it was legit. So, and then at the same time, I also had an offer to go to the Cayman Islands to coach. And they actually flew me out there to the Cayman Islands, had me coach in the gym, showed me around. It's fucking beautiful. Obviously, it's the Cayman Islands. Mm-hmm. The gym was great. The community was great. Again, the two reasons I took the job in Saudi Arabia was because they paid me significantly more money, and two, the training facility was world class. So I consciously decided to go to Saudi Arabia because I figured, okay, well, I just spent 4 years in the Marine Corps hating life for almost no money. I can tolerate what was supposed to be a 2-year contract in a place that I knew I wouldn't like for more money. I found out very quickly that that's not the case. So I was like, okay, I'm done sacrificing my happiness and fulfillment for money. And that's when I started thinking, okay, what do I actually want to do? How can I create a bigger impact in people? And that's when I came up with the idea of, I'd already had the idea of the captain's lifestyle, but that's when I went fully into it and started actually building the program. And then I burned the ships at the shore, sailed back home in one of those dinghies. Yep. Right. So that was at the beginning or at the end of 2019. And then I started like going head on in the beginning of 2020 and never looked back. It was like, okay, I'm done with this. Like the etymology of the word decide.
I was about to talk about that.
Latin, right?
Yeah,
to cut off,
yep.
Right? So that's literally what I did. I was like, okay, I am no longer being an employee. This is going to succeed or I'm going to be living under a bridge.
100%.
Right? So it's like, I am now making this succeed and it's fulfilling.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm making more money.
That's badass. I mean, when you fully surrender to it, everything just changes. Right. So a lot of dudes, they don't understand the process of surrender too. And that's like the biggest part. Like we think we need to add all these different layers, and that's where you really get lost, especially in like the pursuit of money and the external things, just chasing women and fame and all these things on the outside, because you're just continuously adding this layer of BS on top, when in reality it's just like surrendering all that away, going back to our fundamental truth and living from that place. So, I mean, that seems like that's what you did. Mm-hmm. So
I talked to a lot of guys who are in a similar position where they're making good money, but they know they're not fulfilled in their current position. Like I ask them, okay, you see yourself a year from now, 5 years from now, are you still working this job? They're like, oh no, like I would hate it if I was here. But yet if you would have asked them that years back, they probably would have said the same thing, and they're still working this job. So it's just this constant like negative downward spiral of, I'm stressed, but I'm making good money and I don't really know what else I would do because it's uncertain, right? We're scared to go out into the uncertain. Mm-hmm. So what advice would you give to guys who are in that position, knowing they're working a job that does not bring them fulfillment?
You need to first acknowledge right now that you are comfortable and you're stuck in a rut and you're scared. And those are the three main things you need to just accept right now. So it comes down to acceptance of just the truth. Like, no matter what you do, until you accept right now, you can't move forward because you're just in autopilot.
I want to pause here because this gets brought up a lot when talking with guys. It's like, hey, how you doing? Good. How are you? Right? It's just this. Okay, are you actually good?
So you're not actually good.
Yeah, like it's difficult for guys, and I can say this because I've been there. Like it's difficult for us to admit when we're struggling, right? Mm-hmm. We think that we have to have it all together all the time. And if you're working a job that you don't like, that can be stressful to admit that, hey, I'm not in the position that I want to be in. And looking out, it's uncertain. And that's a scary place to be. Mm-hmm. And the more that we suppress that, right, what we resist persists. So if we resist that feeling, the more that's going to compound. And then we get to like our mid 30s and 40s, and then we're piling on this stress and inflammation, and we're living in a state of dis-ease, mm-hmm. right? So to your point, the first step is to simply accept where you are. Accept, okay, I'm not in fact in the position that I want to be in. That's step one, is admitting it to yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For sure. And then the easiest thing you can do, like on top of that, is in your next conversation, you have to force yourself, and it's hard, right? Because there's going to be people who tell you, oh, you can do this hack and this and that. And it's going to be like, it's going to naturally be hard because you're going to be resistant to it. But like, once you can fully accept that you don't like where you're at, start manifesting that into your conversations, right? So for example, I mean, if you're not having a good day, the next time someone says, how are you doing? Say, I could be better, right? Because on the surface, you sound like, a wimp in your mind, but you're at least being honest. And that'll also snap them into reality too, because they're like, oh, I'm so used to people saying I'm good, right? And then they look at you and they're like, oh, that was real. And so it also opens the door for other people to be real. And so by you being the truthful and most authentic version of yourself, you're effectively changing the world without really doing anything. So I'd first say, snap into reality, start speaking your truth, start living your truth, and just go one step at a time. Like you don't have to go dive bombing into the thing immediately that you want to do. It's just like work up to it and start building the courage to be yourself, because that's going to reveal itself with authenticity. So start practicing the art of authenticity, which is, I wouldn't call it an exercise. It's an effortless exercise on its own, I guess you can call it that. But it's just surrender. Like just start speaking your truth and living it in the smallest way possible. What in this moment is being called of you? And just kind of lean into it. Because once you start leaning and get the momentum, that's 50%. Right. And then the rest of it just carried over for momentum.
And it really can be effortless, because when you stop pretending to be something you're not, mm-hmm. or to feel some way that you're not, or to be someone that you're not, life gets a lot easier 100%. Because you can just be who you are.
Yeah.
And not have to think, oh, well, I'm with this person now and I told them this, so I have to act this way now. Right. So it's acting in integrity with yourself. I recently interviewed Chris Marhefka, who's a men's leadership coach. And one of the things that he said was, maturity comes with meticulous integrity, right? Doing what you say you're going to do. That is a huge part of masculinity. And a lot of guys are out of alignment with that. They say things and then they do the opposite of that, right?
That's the whole abracadabra thing that we're talking about. So, I mean, it's ancient Aramaic, right?
Yep.
So with my word, I create.
Yep.
So every word you say is happening and is true. And then when you don't act in accordance to that, your mind and your spirit's gonna pick up on that incoherency.
Yeah.
And that's gonna create that anxiety and all that feeling inside of you that you're lying to yourself. And so just start doing something, like just start saying small things. Don't commit to things too big. Just build your way up, like I was saying, and just be authentic in the moment. Like, I mean, I can even admit too, like when I came here, I had a huge fear of being seen. Right. And so
we talked about that at the immersion.
Right. Yeah. And so, even on YouTube now or TikTok sometimes or podcasts, like for me, there's still like that little fear of, being scared to be vulnerable and admit that. Like I still had a little bit of anxiety coming on it here because it's like you feel like you have to perform.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't have to perform. Performance anxiety isn't just in the bedroom, it's life.
Yes.
Right. And so you don't have to perform. You just have to be.
Yes.
Just accept who you are. And again, it all comes back to truth. Like it's hard to give people tactics to live their truth because it just comes from acceptance and just more of a like not fighting, not trying to do anything, just being what you are now.
And experience.
Yeah, that helps too.
I found, right?
For sure.
The more you put yourself in, I'll speak for myself, the more that I've put myself in new and challenging situations, the more I've learned about myself. Right? I think a lot of guys, especially if they're stuck in that, traditional college, 9 to 5, work the job, come home, be stressed, go out to the bars, drink, and just this constant, basically autopilot loop of the same. Yeah. It's like, well, who are you really? Like, what do you actually enjoy? Like, challenge yourself. There's a quote in The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield that says, I'm going to paraphrase, but fear shows us what we most need to do. Mm-hmm. So whatever it is that you're most scared of doing or most nervous about, that is a clear path. Like, yes, it's scary. That's the fucking point. That's why very few people are actually successful, because they see that. They see the uncertainty. They're like, oh, what if I fail? What if I embarrass myself in front of all these people? It's like, okay, that's the point. That's where you want to go.
Yeah. And if you think about it, every time you've overcome that fear, you felt better after.
Yes.
Like every single time. There's not one time you didn't. And we have this preconceived notion that people who are highly successful don't have fear. It's not, unless they're a psychopath, it's not true at all. They only get bigger, right? But the payoff is also in equal proportion. That's the law of polarity, right? And so as you keep making progress in life, these fears are only going to stack up more and more and more. And it really just comes down to your ability to, again, accept that and dive into it. And that's what, in the way of the superior man, it talks so much about, is living on your edge, right? Yes. And so us as men, if we're not living on our edge, we are slowly decaying every single day, because masculinity and feminine energy, you can think of them like a soft and a hard shell, right? And so the more you push yourself out into the world, the more you live on your edge, the more you need kind of that shield on the outside that keeps you strong, that keeps you sturdy and grounded. So when you encounter this chaos in the world, you can be that grounded place of awareness and presence that, not only a woman can rely on, but people around you can rely on. That's true leadership too. And so once you start implementing those principles, not only is it going to help you overcome the fears and the stresses in your life, but if you're struggling in your relationships, you're going to start attracting more quality ones too. One
of my favorite quotes, Meditations, Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah, dude.
He's
a G.
Great book.
Yeah.
To be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it. So that's essentially a great description of masculinity too. The world is in chaos around you, and you can be that centered, grounding presence, the rock. Mm-hmm. When everything else is crumbling around you, you are at least certain of yourself and the next step that you take. And you mentioned courage and fear. Having courage and being courageous is not the absence of fear. I'm still a little fearful of getting in front of the camera again, feeling like you have to perform. Right?
Yeah.
So it's not the absence of fear; it's acting in the face of fear.
Yeah, you do it anyway. It's faith.
Yes.
The opposite of fear is faith. Mm. Mm. So I'll say that one again.
Yeah.
The opposite of fear is faith.
Do you suffer with stress, anxiety, trouble sleeping? If so, you could be part of the 80% of people who don't get enough magnesium in their diet. Most supplement brands use cheap, low-quality ingredients at ineffective doses. Bioptimizers goes all in on the formulations, combining 7 different forms of bioavailable magnesium. That's why I recommend Magnesium Breakthrough from Bioptimizers.
One of my mantras that I repeat to myself is everything always works out for me.
Yeah.
because it always has and it always will.
Always will.
It always will.
It never once hasn't.
No.
Right.
Even my worst quote unquote failures have been my greatest learning experiences.
It's still, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
it's like-
every time there is no such thing as failure. That's the whole point, is like every time you have this in your mind, this negative experience, it always taught you something new. So you never fail ever. And like that changes your whole approach to life, right?
Failure's a mindset.
Yeah, for sure.
You only fail if you give up.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, when they do meet that resistance and it's too challenging and they failed and maybe they felt embarrassed from the failure, they give up. They're like, oh, fuck that. I'm not experiencing that again.
Mm-hmm. It's also choosing what you focus on.
Yes.
Right? Because you feel that feeling of, say, embarrassment, right? You go out, you make a fool out of yourself. Okay, well, maybe if you look at that feeling at a deeper level and you really feel it, it's the same as excitement or humor, right? Because we laugh too when we get embarrassed, right? So there's got to be some humorous aspect to it. So it's like choosing what to focus on. There's this experiment. It was called the double slit experiment. Yeah.
Are we going there?
We can go into it.
Okay.
Yeah. You probably, I haven't read it in a while, but basically they took it wasn't a particle accelerator. It was a particle gun or something.
Yeah. They fucking somehow shot particles at this.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. They shot these two particles as two atoms, and the one that they focused on was the one that registered on this machine, correct?
Yeah.
And when they didn't focus on both of them, one of them disappeared.
Yeah. We're going to completely butcher the explanation of this if we try to go into it.
Yeah, you guys should just look at it.
We're gonna put the link to the YouTube video that explains this in the show notes, and it's fucking mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So moral of the story
is you focus, what you focus on, you get.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, that's basically the whole point.
Let's focus on confidence, which is something a lot of men today lack.
Yeah.
They feel insecure. And going back to the start of this podcast, they feel like it's even toxic to be confident in themselves,
Yeah.
right? We've all been taught to, stay humble, be quiet, and that's exactly the opposite of how the masculine is supposed to present themselves. And I'm not talking like, you have to walk into the room like, oh, hey, look at me. But it's the opposite of that. It's this quiet confidence. You should feel the presence when you enter the room.
100%.
Right?
I would say, honestly, confidence comes more down to, are you coherent with your actions? Right? So you can have people like Muhammad Ali and Trump and all these dudes who talk, but it's like they actually back it up.
Yeah.
Right. So unless you're backing it up, you have no reason to walk in a room and talk. You can affirm these things all day, but your true affirmation is going to come from what you do. And so a lot of guys, they lack confidence. The first step to getting confidence is first realizing that it's a spectrum and you're just on the negative side of it. You can get to neutral by accepting, oh yeah, I have no fucking confidence. It's all good. And all of a sudden you feel more confident saying that because it's truth. And truth is like a lion. It doesn't need protection. It's going to protect itself. And so that's when you come from a place of truth, all of a sudden you're that lion. I love the lion. That's my favorite symbol other than the horse.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. But once you accept that, you get yourself to this place of neutrality and you can start thinking, okay, now that I accept I am low confidence, what actions can I take that would make me feel confident? What are some times in my life I did feel confident? When did I feel secure in myself? When did I flow with life? When did I not worry about the opinions of others? What are some things that allow me to bring that out? You'll realize a lot of it can come down to fitness and all these things going against, like you said, the things that you're scared of. But that's how you start moving to the other side of the spectrum. And life's just really this dance of the positive and negative poles. That's the law of polarity.
Yeah. There's physical confidence and then there's mental confidence. So me, I've had the physical confidence. I've looked good for a large majority of my life because I've made fitness a pillar in my life. It's I can't imagine a world where I don't work out. This is just what I do.
Right.
And so a lot of people experience a lack of confidence because they don't like the way that they look. So if you don't like the way that you look, do something about it. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then, so in addition to that, even when you do something about it, like I've had lack of confidence even when I did look good. And so then it was this mental story that I was telling myself. So once you get the physical side out of the way, once you do look good, feel good, and this isn't just, being ripped and having a six pack. This is how you present yourself. This is how you walk, your posture, right? It's, if you are down here and like, nobody look at me, right?
Right.
Versus like opening your chest up to the world, right? Like that completely changes your reality. And then it's mental confidence, which goes back to integrity. Like if you keep saying things and then going against that, of course you're not going to feel confident because you have no integrity, right?
Yeah, it's character, dude. I mean, that's why you see in the bodybuilding space, there's a lot of guys who look like Lamborghinis, but they're driving a Camry engine.
Yes.
Like deep down, they're really still scared or fearful or angry at something. And so it's like, that's why you see all these dudes. It drives me crazy. Guys who build their brand off of like breakups and stuff. Yeah. Like I get it. You went through a phase.
Yeah.
But you just got to man up and realize like you can't build your entire life off of this negative outlook because you're going to just keep yourself from getting to where you want to go. And so a lot of guys today, they put on this hard shell without actually mending the internal aspects of themselves, the truth again, because it's like a lot of the dudes that are successful in fitness, for example, yes, they love it. But at the same time, a lot of them are doing it to mask themselves from some fear that they're scared of going to overcome. And at a deeper level, for most guys, that's something entrepreneurial or creation that they're scared to create. And so they just keep working on themselves and their body and telling themselves these things. I'm going to be the most jacked and aesthetic room in the guy for blah, 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 blah. And you put on the shell and it's BS. And like, eventually you just got to look in the mirror and realize like, okay, I look strong on the outside, but inside I'm actually not being the person that is the one I see in my mind. Like, just because you look good doesn't mean that you can take care of a family in the future. And you know that. So you just got to man up and accept it and go out. And I've yelled at so many dudes on this. Be like, listen, man, sure, you look better than me aesthetically, but you're a pussy.
Yeah.
You're scared to go after your goals. And listen, like we're all scared of that. It scares all of us, but you still have to dive into it. And so I think a lot of guys need to hear that today, and they don't have someone who tells them the truth.
Yep.
I was very fortunate. I grew up with a dad who would just tell me straight up the truth. That's what I'm very grateful for my mentor, Robert, for, right? Is because they're people who tell us the truth, and we have so much. How can I phrase this? So we need feminine energy, but as men, we can't have feminine energy tell us how to increase our masculine energy.
Yes.
Right. And that's what so many guys are growing up with is, kind of an absent dad, one who's not living his own purpose, not on his edge. And they don't have good masculine role models. That's why you see people like Mr. T, Top G taking off, right? Because these dudes are looking for, and that's a whole different discussion, but like it's coming from a place of like truth and more so what you need to hear in the moment. And so that's what guys are looking for today. And that's really where this lack of masculinity and this lack of purpose and feeling lost is coming from, is someone who's just not, they don't look at you in the eyes and they say, you're jacked up. Like, you've got to fix it. Most people, it's okay.
Sugarcoat it.
Yeah, it's okay. Like, you'll figure it out eventually. No, figure it out right fucking now.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have time because you could die tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? And we need that.
One of my favorite ways to protect myself from EMFs is swimming in the ocean. And even when I can't, I'm still protected with my Aries Tech Life Tune Flex. It protects me from the oxidative stress caused by electromagnetic radiation that can cause things like headaches, fatigue, and trouble sleeping. To get yours, head to ariestech.com and use code Captain Morgan. That's ariestech.com, use code Captain Morgan. All right, back to the show.
I talk to a lot of guys and I ask, hey, what are your goals? Cool. Who's holding you accountable to those goals? A lot of them will say my girlfriend or my wife. It's like, bro.
I know. Yeah, dude. Oh man.
Like that's great. And if you start slacking off unless she's in the masculine role and you're in the feminine. Like she's going to say, oh, exactly what you said. Oh, it's okay. You know, we can just get back to it.
She doesn't know how to be a man.
No.
And when she does, she's going to lose attraction for you.
Yes. So let's talk about polarity and why polarity is so important between the masculine and the feminine.
I mean, opposites attract. And I mean, that's why you see, you know, a electron orbits around a proton. If you look at it at a atomic level, that's what's happening. You got these two different polarities that attract to each other. And so if you are a male who's in this feminine role, what's going to happen is you're naturally going to attract a partner in terms of like romantic relationships and stuff who is going to fill that opposite role because you need balance. And that's what the universe is always seeking, right? And so if you're attracting all these masculine women and they're the ones who have to take charge and they have to lead and all these things, like it's obviously a give and take for both sides. It's a dance. But if she's the one initiating everything and you don't have to really do anything, look at yourself in the mirror for a minute and ask myself, am I being the full man that I could be? Am I living at my edge? Because your relationship is just a small example of what you're doing with life. And I put a quote out the other day where masculinity maintains society, femininity maintains life. Okay. And so the way you approach the feminine is the way you approach life. And I've learned that the hard way. Like I've noticed it in my life too. And that's what got me really into it. I was like, why are all my relationships so bad? Why am I attracting women that just like, I feel like a loser, dude. And so I had to look at myself in the mirror. And I think that's a big motivation for guys, obviously, because that's how you create life itself. And so you have to be like, oh man, if I'm not getting the women I want, it means I'm not the man I need to be. And so it really does come down to us becoming that person. That's what the journey of masculinity is.
Let's define masculine and feminine energy. Because when you say attract a masculine partner, we're not talking about like this butch lesbian necessarily, right? Like,
no, it's not my type. I don't think it's most guys' type. But
so we already covered some of the most important pillars of masculinity, integrity being one of them, doing what you say you're going to do, making and keeping promises, right? That's one. Creating order out of chaos, structure.
Boundaries, I'd say is number one, like the best way to put that. Because what the feminine wants is to flow. Because life flows. And again, we can just think of like masculinity and femininity as creation and then just life and the flow of life itself, right? And so us as men is we create, and I'm not saying be controlling, but if you create like a safe space,
be a leader.
Space, boundaries for the feminine to flow around, then it's going to be more, she's going to feel safe and protected. And so if you don't have the ability to make boundaries in your own life, like if you're getting stepped on, that's your first sign. You have zero boundaries. So boundaries are so important. Two is, you can go, I know you're saying something.
I was telling these guys today, I got a message a while back on Instagram from a woman saying that she's lost respect for her husband because he lets their daughter walk all over him. Like there are no boundaries. He's not the leader of the family. He's not in the father role. Right. So that's a perfect example of how if you let other people, specifically women, influence your decisions, that's you basically admitting that you don't trust your own intuition, that you don't trust yourself. Right?
100%.
You're like, no, okay, we'll go with your choice because I trust you more than my own decisions.
And a lot of guys think that it's because, that's the funny thing. Like a lot of dudes think it's because the woman doubts them, but it's more so that she's just testing you to see how strong you are as a man. She's subconscious. She has no idea. She has no idea she's doing this, but she's subconsciously thinking, is he going to stick to this decision? Right? Because she wants to follow someone who's certain.
She has to know that she's safe.
Right. Yeah. Women just flow around. They're uncertain.
Yeah.
That's why the emotional roller coaster exists. And embracing that is like the most beautiful thing of women. Like, keep doing that thing, but you have to be a man that allows them to do that. Otherwise, they're gonna be like, oh, I don't feel safe. And now I have to like monitor myself and close myself down. And she doesn't want to feel closed down. And the act of sex itself is symbolic of this, right? And so it comes down to like opening yourself up spiritually. And once you really start to see that and the symbolism of it, it kind of just makes sense, right? But you have to expand your awareness and get to that point.
Feminine women want to be ravished by their man.
For sure.
They don't want a little diddling. Like, they want to be fucking taken control of.
Yeah, and they want that warrior, dude.
In a safe and
diddling.
I like that.
I like that word.
Yeah. They want to feel like they're safe, because when they are fully safe, they can fully open themselves and be free.
Right.
Right. I completely forgot what I was going to say next, but let's go into toxic masculinity. What is toxic masculinity? Why is that a thing right now?
Because toxic femininity, which the whole toxic thing doesn't even exist. Ironically, like, feminism today has become masculinity.
Ooh.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, in a way. Absolutely.
Because it even talks about this in the book. There's like, I forget what the law is, but it's like this law of, I call it masculine replacement. And so if there's no masculine energy in the room, someone's going to come in to fill it. And in a relationship, that's the women. Right. And so I don't want to point fingers and all that stuff, but you can look at a lot of like modern day feminism and all that stuff. A lot of them have been wounded by a male in some way, whether it was a father, whether someone broke their heart, whatever it is, and they put on a shield. And so that's like reinforced over and over. And it becomes this projection onto rejecting masculinity. And ironically, the natural energy of the woman is going to come out and have to fill that role. And so you notice like the feminine side of it becomes more masculine, which then guys are also growing up in this reactive nature, being raised in a more feminine nature. And they accept that. And so that reinforces this lack of masculinity. And so you get a depolarized society where everyone is secretly in trauma and lost and hurting, and they have no idea why, because they've never understood what awareness is in the first place. And so that's really how we've gotten to this point. And so this like whole toxic masculinity thing has come from a lack of men modeling what true masculinity is from a place of consciousness and awareness. I'm not talking about the controlling stuff, because I would definitely say there's wounded masculinity, 100%. And that's a lack of internal feminine energy, because we have a harmony of, but I wouldn't say balance, because balance neutralizes you, right? That's 50-50. That's like a teeter-totter that's chilling. I'd say we more have the harmony, because that's what you see in yin and yang, is there's a little bit in each side. It's like 80-20, right? 80-20 principle pops up everywhere.
Yeah.
Interesting. But yeah, like we have to accept that we have a little of that feminine energy inside of us too, because that's what allows us to tap into God or divine, the source, whatever you want to call it. And without that, we're going to be like throwing things against the wall and just hyper aggressive without knowing why. Like that's our GPS guiding system. If we don't have that connection of the feminine energy of life itself, then we're just a ruthless barbarian that's doing everything for nothing, for no reason. And so it's like finding again that inner harmony. And once you do that in ourselves, then society will start to autocorrect too. And so I'm going so many tangents, but we can go at like a societal level and try and fix these things on the surface, but it's not going to do anything.
It starts with us.
It always starts with us. There's a sentence, sentence quote, whatever it was, where basically it was talking about if you took all the money in the world and divided it evenly to everybody, it would still end up in the same people's hands.
Agreed, yeah.
Because we don't have the underlying knowledge, foundations, fundamentals, truths that allow us to understand what to even do with it. And so, again, it's like coming back to awareness and all this stuff. And most guys just lack that awareness in general. And so we've had this manifestation of anger and frustration because we know something is wrong deep down, but people don't know how to look within and they're distracted outside just at a monumental degree.
A lot of it is projections, right?
100%.
Because we don't want to look internally and we don't want to take the ownership for our own problems. We project it onto society. Like,
yeah.
I feel this way because of this person, or society is the root cause of the problem. Well, what is society? Like, we are all part of society. So if we change, everybody else can change. But the longer that you wait for some external circumstance to change, well, you're going to be waiting a long fucking time.
Mm-hmm.
But you can change whenever you decide to.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. And I mean, the media and, like I said, the feminine influence on guys growing up not having a masculine role model tells you, like, it's okay to put your responsibility somewhere else. It's not your fault. It's someone else's fault. It's the government's fault or this and that. No, it's your fault because you let it happen.
A lot of people view that as hurtful, or what's a good word to describe it? Yeah, hurtful or inaccurate, but really it's the most empowering thing that you can realize.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you understand that everything in your life is 100% within your control based on your actions, then it's like, okay, well, now I can actually change something.
Mm-hmm.
Where before I was just complaining and blaming everybody else and not getting anything productive done. Now I can take ownership of that and start to move forwards.
It's only hurtful if you perceive it as hurtful,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you could be in a hospital and the doctor could be doing surgery on you with a scalpel, and you could look at it as, oh, he's digging a bullet out of me or he's stabbing me.
Mm.
It's like, which one do you see it as?
Yeah.
Right? The truth is going to hurt, but it's also going to save your life.
Why do you think a lot of us are afraid to face the truth? I think a lot of people are living in a false truth, right? Like, they're living in the world that the media, the government, social media is saying this is reality, right? And they just blindly accept that, and they think that's how things are, when you and I are disconnected from that, and we can see from, like, oh, like, this is what they're saying, but really I'm in control of my life. These things that the media says are huge issues, like, I'm not affected by this whatsoever. So why do you imagine it's hard for people to move away from the whatever their narrative is to change? Why are people reluctant to change? I guess would be a better question. Well, we already covered that. It goes back to uncertainty.
I would say
because they're addicted to the certainty of misery.
I would say this. That's a huge part of it. I would say most people are more scared of the pain that comes from accepting the truth in this moment than they are of the pain that they'll feel from sustaining a lie.
Say that again.
Most people are scared of the pain that they'll feel from accepting the truth in this moment, more so than the pain that they'll feel from long-term regret of living a lie. It's deep.
Yeah. Regret, I imagine, to be the worst possible emotion a human being can feel, especially when it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're older, and especially if you're on your deathbed, and then there's no way that you can go back and change things. So I would say if you're experiencing any level of regret right now, if you're listening to this podcast, that's your opportunity to make new choices.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to abracadabra, if we want to change our personal reality, it starts with the words, right? Because your words dictate how you feel, right? Somebody says something negative to you, you're going to feel, oh, I'm angry or I'm sad or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you change how you're perceiving that story, right? Because it's just words. Words cannot actually harm you. It's your perception of them. So you change how you're perceiving the words, you change how you feel. If you change how you feel, you're going to act differently because you act in accordance with how you feel,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then if you change how you feel, you're going to act differently. When you act differently, you create a new personality.
Mm-hmm.
And that new personality creates a new personal reality. Yeah. So instead of projecting, right, we take ownership. Okay. My words and my thoughts are in my control. You change those things, change how you feel, change how you feel, change how you act, change how you act. New personal reality.
I think too, the living on your edge helps you minimize the regret aspect, because today we're so comfortable, right? We're so used to not having to push ourselves. We don't see death every day like 1,000 years ago. And so back then they're so used to people like just being dead on the streets and wars and all types of stuff. And it makes you look at life differently. And so we don't live in that edge as men today that allows us to see how short it all really is. Like they were reminded every day. People were dying from diseases, all this stuff. We have all these beautiful miracles that have been created in our world, but it sustains us instead of reminds us about the fact that we're still mortal. We're not going to be here forever. And so, I mean, me personally, I watched my older brother die when I was a freshman in high school,
Mm-hmm.
right? That was tough. And so I learned quickly the finality of life and how fast it can end. And that will change your perspective when you can truly see that in front of your face. It makes you minimize regret because you're constantly reminded, especially when it's something close to you. You think, you know what? I might as well make the most of today because tomorrow is not even promised. It's not. And so, even us doing like the MMA, all that, that's why I love it. I love it so much. I was avoiding it for a while because I knew as soon as I started it, I'd be hooked. I was like, I don't know if I should do this because I know I'm going to be going 3 days a week. Right? I'll tell you right now, my mental, spiritual, physical, financial, relationships, every aspect of those is increased from putting yourself in a situation where death is in front of your face. You get to this primal, it's almost an autopilot where like your instincts kick in and your body is preparing to die. But at the same time, what happens is with the law of polarity, you're preparing to prevail, right? So you need that edge where you're always facing death. Otherwise, you can never become the man that you know you are deep down.
Other than MMA, how are you living at your edge?
I just do things that scare me. Like when I moved to Tampa, it was on a month and a half notice. And I just hated where I was at so much. And we look at hate as a bad thing, but it's what allows you to get to a place of love too, because it's just a spectrum. I didn't like at all where I was at. And I was like, I need to get out of here right now. And so I was scared of the move. And what's funny is I thought it was going to be this expensive thing. It cost me less than like $1,000 to move across the country. And all of a sudden I had exactly what I wanted, had the freedom I wanted. I was like, you know what? I haven't gone skydiving in a while. I'm going to do that for my birthday because it kind of scares me a little bit. Let's do it. And so it's just really ramping it up over and over. I've signed up to mentorships that I was scared to put thousands of dollars into. Pays off. And it also makes you put your ass on the line, right? We're so used to getting things handed to us, but it's like without you putting in your half and putting yourself at that edge willingly, you're not going to get to where you want to go. You got to have that buy-in and you got to just force yourself to do those things that really scare you. Like, I wish there was a simple solution to it other than like start small, but it's just putting yourself in those situations where you have, a lot of things that scare you and a lot on your shoulders. And I think too, that comes from taking up more responsibility. I think that's the biggest thing for guys is responsibility.
That's why I like cold showers.
Amazing.
Like if that's where you're starting, like you're deliberately putting yourself into a challenging situation.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to suck. It's going to be cold and you do it anyway. So that can be a stepping stone to these larger decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And really, most of the time, the big scary monster that we're afraid of is actually just in our head.
Mm-hmm.
When you actually go do the thing, you're like, oh, I was way more worried about this than I should have been. Like, this is really not that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
So an exercise that can help with that is like, if you have a major decision that you're fearful of making, list out like your top 3 biggest fears. Like, what is the worst thing that can happen? List those out and then play those roles out.
Mm-hmm.
And see like, okay, is this what I'm so worried about? Like I moved to Tampa and so let's play this. What were your like biggest fears or hesitancies around moving?
It was more so like, will I be able to support myself? What if I fail and have to come back home? And all types of things where I was already thinking of like these imaginary outcomes when I haven't even done it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you make this monster in the closet bigger when you haven't even opened the closet yet. You don't even know if it is a closet. It could be a door to greener pastures.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just like you make up things in your head. And it's the same with cold showers, dude. You like stand there dancing for like 50 minutes and then you get into it and you're like, oh, okay, it's not that bad. And it's like, guys, I've watched Taylor. Listen, I'm telling you, like, once you do these things that suck, that's where you find transcendence, because that's how you enter flow state. That's what most people are seeking in life, is just to live in the flow state. And that has to come from challenge, because you can be skillful at something, you can be talented, whatever it is, but unless you like put yourself at that little bit of an edge, it's not going to wake up that primal savage inside of you that we're all seeking to release because it's so repressed today. And so I watched Taylor freaking submerged in an ice bath for 20 minutes. I thought you were dead. I literally thought this guy was dead. I'm serious. I was like, Leo, I was looking at Leo. I was like, dude, I don't know if he's coming up. I'm serious. Like, is he breathing? And so we checked and he's like, yeah, he's breathing. It's like, all right, you were in Zen mode. And so you came up, I won't forget, you came up so slowly. You just slick your hair back and you're just like, I was like, dude just went to heaven. That was crazy.
Well, for real, because I've gotten really good at, when uncomfortable, down regulating my nervous system, because it does no good to panic and freak myself out. One of my superpowers is staying calm amidst chaos. Like I discovered this when I was in the Marine Corps, and as a machine gunner, there's high amounts of stress and chaos.
For sure.
And that's where I thrive. Like, I was always clear-headed and just focused and dialed. And again, that comes through putting yourself through these challenging situations and realizing also, unless you're actually like in battle, there is no pressure, only practice. So a lot of these things that we're fearful of, it's because we view the outcome as the end all be all. Like, if I fail this, I actually failed, right? And it's like, no, that's just practice for the next thing, for the next time you do it.
That's a great mindset.
Right? So, Mason, it's been great talking with you. Let's wrap it up by...
Let's do it, because we could have kept going for hours.
Yeah. There's a lot of different rabbit holes that
we opened a lot.
We could go down.
Yeah.
So before I ask the 2 final questions, talk to us about what's in this pre-workout.
So we got some bee pollen extract. If you don't know what my brand is, the Stampede Network. We came to market based off our premier product, Spartan Bee Bread, which is basically a fermented bee pollen and honey. You have it on you?
I got one right now. I forgot about this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
But this thing's loaded in polyphenols, glutathione, antioxidants. flavonoids, all types of good stuff. Helps your body recover faster. Your sleep is way better. Vitality is better. You perform better in the gym. It's antioxidative stress. So it's literally like nature's miracle superfood. In ancient Egypt, they called it the food of the gods. So how's it taste? How long have you had that?
A while.
Yeah. How's it taste?
Since the immersion.
Does it taste good still?
Yeah. It tastes the same. You know, honey is the only food that never goes bad.
Yeah. So, especially with, they ferment it too.
Yeah. Bee products are phenomenal.
It's amazing. Yeah. So with the pre, I wanted to incorporate all the good elements of the bee bread. So we did bee pollen extract 4-to-1. So it's high potency. We also got beetroot in there, 3 grams of that. So I was just talking to Chase about this. He's like, I want to know what's in it.
Chase Tollison, by the way.
Yeah. And so, here you go, Chase. But we got beetroot in here. We got some theobromine, which is in cacao. So it increases your serotonin levels. We also got some alpha GPC. That helps you with the focus side of things. We got some mucuna, which is going to help your dopamine levels, also help heal your central nervous system. Tonga Ali, which is for testosterone. Dude, I put so many things in here. We got a little natural caffeine, decaffeine malate, so you have no crash, none of the jitters. And then we got rhodiola rosea, which is an adaptogen. It's kind of similar to an upper version of ashwagandha. And so that's going to give you this euphoric feeling, as well as have an effect on your serotonin levels. But the things that I was most excited about is, one, we have none of like the natural or none of the synthetic flavoring in there. So no sucralose, no acesulfame potassium.
Asuflame.
Whatever. It's still garbage, whatever it is.
Whatever that shit's called. It's fucking nonsense.
Asuflame.
Asuflame potassium.
We also have no natural flavors labeling, because those are not natural. That's a whole different rabbit hole. And then we added some magnesium into it, some Himalayan pink salt, and some other good stuff to help, because 90% of Americans have a mineral deficiency. So I was like, oh, well, what if we could offset the effects of that in this pre and just make it like an all-in-one? Because people have hormone levels that are whack, low minerals. They take all these caffeine supplements every day that are highly diuretic, right? So you end up peeing out all these minerals and all this stuff. And so I wanted to offset that and at least get us to a neutral baseline where you can go positive. And so that's what the other ingredients do.
Nice. I like that it's not fucking loaded with caffeine.
Yeah, you don't want to jack your adrenals up like that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. What are you most excited about?
I'm going hard on my YouTube this year. So
Fuck yeah.
That's like my big goal. Like I'm set on that and I'm obsessed with it. So I just brought on a whole team. They're killing it, but my goal is I want to hit 50K, and I'm going to hit 50K by the end of this year.
Abracadabra.
100%. Like I'm obsessed with it at this point. And so for me, it's all like just videos. I'm realizing what I really love to do is I just love to make videos that distill knowledge and help people see the world a different way.
And create some controversy.
100%. Yes. Put some truth into the videos, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just be a messenger in a way. And so that's what I really love to do. And I don't like think about it. I always get asked all the time, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing the exact same thing because I love what I do. It's just at a bigger scale. So I think once you find that, life really changes. But for me, I'm excited about YouTube, obviously this pre-workout release, and just building a brand and a community more than anything.
Heck yeah. Last question. What does thriving mean to you?
I'd say waking up every single day, looking forward to the overarching vision of what you're doing. So I wouldn't say we wake up every single day excited.
Yeah.
But
I thought that's where you're going. I was like, huh.
Yeah. But
I was going to counter it.
Yeah. But I would say where you're going, that at least inspires you. So as long as you have like a big North Star to follow.
Going back to the purpose.
100% a purpose. And I have a whole formula on that.
Let's hear it.
You want to do it?
Yeah, let's hear it.
It's a 5-step purpose formula.
Okay.
And it applies to every man or woman on earth.
Okay.
Because it comes from awareness.
Let's go.
So step 1 through 3 is about the journey of self-actualization. So becoming who you can be as you. 4 and 5 is about self-transcendence. So we know like Maslow's hierarchy, you get to the top of this pyramid and then what? You hit a point. Well, now it flips upside down. And that's where self-transcendence happens. And if you visualize that in your mind, this pyramid upside down, what's happening is it only expands. So all of a sudden you're infinite versus this triangle that's limiting you. And, the funny thing about it is it's in direct proportion to you, the bottom triangle or the bottom pyramid, right? And so this whole journey of finding your purpose starts with you. And the first 3 steps of self-actualization are as follows. So you start with fitness and nutrition, the body, right? Because that's what we have the most access to right now. It's where we get the most needs. If we don't take care of it, we die. And so I always recommend for people, start with getting your nutrition in check because food is the ultimate motivation. You don't really have to do much to want to eat, right? So at least start changing what you eat and getting awareness of that, fixing up your nutrition, cutting out the seed oils, cutting out the synthetic ingredients, cutting out like the fast food, and just start changing those habits. Once you do that, you also start going into the fitness side of things because once you can get once you get disciplined with the nutrition, then it's going to be a lot easier to go to the gym every day. And you're going to have a reason to because you're going to start seeing yourself in the mirror as becoming the person that you want to be. Like if you fix your diet's 90% of it, right? So it's like if you can get your nutrition in check, then you're going to start looking good, but you want to look even better and you'll have more motivation to do so once you start hitting the gym. And so that's step 1 is just take care of the body. Step 2 is where we enter the mind. And so that comes from step 1 because in order to get our nutrition, our fitness in check, you have to learn how to take control of your mind. You have to learn how to give yourself discipline and direct yourself towards a goal. And so this is where you start to really understand the mind and you can start putting in new goals and directives that you want to do on yourself. Like what other aspects of myself, what beliefs do I have are bad that I want to fix? Because if a man or a woman that can control their nutrition and their diet and what they put into their body, they can control anything. So get yourself into that mind area by taking care of the body. Once you get your mind on lock, you'll naturally, and this is like a flow, you don't even have to force these things. Once you get the mind on lock, you'll naturally start to gain awareness because you've been changing the way you think. And so you'll start to naturally get curious about, how was I doing this? Where was this belief coming from? And that leads to this act of awareness. And so once you start to really understand what awareness is, because we don't know what we don't know, and that's how you wake that up, you can start getting into like meditative practices and you can start going deeper. And meditation is just like an active thing. We don't have to sit there and om all day. We can witness right now. Like what we're doing is an act of meditation. We're conscious of our thoughts. We're conscious what we say, and we consciously choose to put it out there. And so once you gain that awareness, you've become the person in the moment that you can be. Like you get to your innate state, which is this aware person who's taking care of themselves and all these things. And that's where people get messed up, is because self-improvement is such a rabbit hole. Like you'll keep improving, but no one asks for what? What are you improving for? Like, sure, you're making yourself better, but it's like, where does it go past you? And so that's where we get to the self-transcendence thing. Step 4, using the previous ones in your newfound sense of awareness, you can start figuring out what is energizing me, because you have that awareness inside you. And that's what I was talking about with the bodybuilders. They know they're not doing these things. Like you start using that awareness to pick up, what am I scared of? What are the things that energize me? What are the skills I have? What was I doing as a little kid that I flow with? What are some things that I'm innately good at? For me, I found out and I realized I always loved being on camera. I loved making videos. I love communicating. I love sharing knowledge. I was always into the fitness side of things, and that was natural for me. Holistic wellness, all these things. And so that was my step 4, was that realization of this. And so I committed, which is also part of step 4, to mastery, which is just continuously refining and developing those things that are innate to you and natural. And so once you do that, once you develop your skills, you hit step 5, which is really the peak, and it goes infinite. You start giving it to the world. And so for me, for example, I had realized I have knowledge on fitness, nutrition, exactly what I'm talking about right now, masculinity. And I use that awareness to start using the same skills that I was developing, such as content and video and speaking. And I started building an audience and distilling it on TikTok. So it's like step 5 is really just finding the vehicle to give it to the world. And in the process, you're giving yourself from steps 1 through 3 to the world. Mm-hmm. And so the more you continuously refine you and continue to give yourself to the world, that's how you find purpose, create impact, and find fulfillment. Because at the end of the day, fulfillment comes from 3 things: creation, connection, and contribution. And so that covers every single one. You create yourself, you create your gifts. You connect to yourself, you connect to others. You contribute to your growth, you contribute to the growth of others. And it's that simple. And if you do that, you're going to find fulfillment. Mm. It's impossible for you not to, because that's the innate human desire. I mean, that's just what we are. So if you follow the 5 steps, you'll literally radically change your life.
So basically, just become the best version of yourself and give your gifts to the world.
Yeah. That's simple.
Simple.
And that framework.
Let's fucking do it.
Let's do it.
Mason, appreciate you coming on.
That's fire.
Live the captain's lifestyle.
That's right.
Peace.